Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cherries Red Army YouTube channel. I'm Kirk. It's Friday. You know what that means. It's another match preview, and your football weekend starts right here. Tomorrow afternoon, AFC Bournemouth take on Preston away from home at Deepdale in the Championship, and we're going to delve deeper into that game and see how we can get Cherries over the line and another 3 points. Got a really exciting guest tonight that I'm sure you're looking forward to. But first, make sure you, the fans, the followers, interact throughout the show and let us know what you think about tomorrow's game. If you're already a subscriber to our new YouTube channel, we appreciate all your support. Thank you so much. If you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and help us get to that new target of 300 subscribers. We'd really appreciate it. Also, make sure you hit the like button as well. Okay, my AFC Bournemouth guest is someone you probably know really well, helps us give us fans some breaking news in and out of the club, and also some exciting commentary with Willow. Please welcome everyone, Kris Temple. How you doing, Kris?
Evening, Kirk. I'll try and make it exciting. Sometimes the game makes it more difficult to do that, but I will do my best, of course.
And firstly, how are you doing? How's your week been? And your good deed for the week is getting justice for Junior.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it didn't take too much of a case of my part. I think just publicising it, but the club were very quick on the mark to get that goal credited for Junior, which was obviously confirmed a little bit earlier on. I still am amazed it went down as an own goal in the first place, to be honest with you. But that's a significant one for Junior, obviously, in terms of it being takes him into the lead as the Cherries' top scorer. In terms of the week, I mean, like everybody's job in whatever walk of life, when things are going well, the job's a bit easier. So although I was sat in the cupboard on Wednesday night and not in the ground, it's always better when the team are winning and you've got a few more positive things to talk about, even if the performance is, still a little bit of work to do, I think, with the Woodgate regime. But hey, as anyone will tell you at this stage of the season, it's just get those 3 points however you can, even off CCV's backside if you have to.
And before we get stuck into the match preview, how is adapting to your role and all the roles and profession that you do with sport since this time last year? Is it getting easier?
It certainly took a little bit of time to get used to. I think the biggest issue for commentators is the lack of crowd, because it does completely change how you do your job. If I'm talking about when I'm in the ground now, and with no fans there, obviously we had a little taste of a couple of thousand fans for a couple of games, but I've actually noticed myself in the last week using the phrase "into the back of the net" on quite a few goal commentaries. And one of the reasons I'm pinning myself for doing that is because normally when a ball goes into the net, you let your commentary breathe a little bit, and there's the crowd noise to tell you it's gone into the net. It's a goal. You've got the crowd soundtrack telling you. But of course, there's no way of anybody knowing. You might get a few shouts from the bench, but they're not actually always easy to hear on the radio. So those kind of little things I'm noticing more as I go along, that, actually without the crowd to give you I always call it surfing the soundtrack, if you like, surfing a wave of the crowd soundtrack through the game. So when you're on the radio, you sort of a bit of light and shade in your commentary, you react to what's happening with the crowd. And sometimes the crowd noise, if they suddenly go mad about something at home, you're thinking what's happened. And that's when I can come in and tell you what's happened. But actually, and also, you'll suddenly hear the crowd making a noise. If you're making a cup of tea, it might just suddenly, your ear pricks up to the radio. So there's all kinds of things. And I do feel like we're having to work harder to try and generate the energy and keep the commentary moving without a crowd. But that's been the biggest challenge. But I underpin all that, I always do, by saying for half the games anyway at the moment, we're very lucky to be there. And, a lot of people would rather be where we are.
And what's about when you got Moose potentially in your ears a few seats away?
Goodness me, that makes it very difficult. Let me tell you, there's not enough sound dampening equipment in the world, I don't think, to keep a lid on him. But that is unfortunately one of the downsides of empty stadiums, is you can hear everybody else around you in the press corps. You'd hear them the same. We're all sitting even closer, or pretty close still, only a couple of meters away, but close enough to hear each other. But without the crowd, again, making the sound and drowning everybody else out, then unfortunately, when people like Moose come piling in with their goal updates, then it's pretty difficult and it's pretty off-putting.
Also new this year is the AFC Bournemouth podcast, which I'm really enjoying. Started, I think, with Richard Hughes. You've had Dan Juma, Will Shear, and the last one I really enjoyed. Listened to that one in the car the other day on the way to work with Dan Hodges. Some information that we hear that actually we don't know what really goes on behind the scenes on a day-to-day basis. Really enjoyed that one. And also a new one coming up with a certain Redknapp.
Yeah, you're right. The Dan Hodges one was really interesting. And the good thing about those podcasts is that we're learning as we go as well. We're learning a lot about Jack Wilshere's career, a lot about Arnaut Danjuma's career, and a lot from Richard Hughes about some of the technical workings of the club and the recruitment processes and some of the staff. But yeah, Dan Hodges, I did find that really interesting, particularly the challenges of this season with the frenetic fixture schedule, getting these players patched up and sent out again. And I know that'll be a topic when we're previewing tomorrow's game in a short while. But yeah, we actually recorded the one with Jamie Redknapp today. The club won't mind me saying that because they put out some hints for questions earlier. So it's not a secret that we've done him, but we recorded it today. It's really good. It's going to be worth a listen for sure. And it'll be, I'm sure, out in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure exactly when, though.
Great to hear. Great to hear. And before we get stuck into Preston, then on Wednesday night, we went away to Bristol City. A valid 3 points, like you said. We went behind, but we got ourselves back in the game through some luck and some more luck in the second half. Luck that we've probably not had for large spells of this season. Like you said, getting the 3 points was the most important thing.
Yeah, it's been a mixed bag, isn't it? Because earlier in the season, actually, you probably could say that Bournemouth got a couple of results where they didn't play that well. Maybe not quite as much luck as something going off someone's backside, but sometimes other teams would miss chances. Bournemouth would have 10 chances and only score one. So yeah, a different kind of sort of winning with a little bit of luck, if you like. But I think the defensive solidity has been the thing that's improved in the last few games, that's for sure. And of course, that comes at the expense of some of the attacking fluidity from some of the flair players. The Danjumas and the Stanislas's are finding it a little bit hard to sort of link play up together. But I think Jonathan Woodgate, first and foremost, he wanted to make sure that the platform was there defensively. He seems to have picked his back five now in terms of including the keeper as well. He seems to have settled on his first choice back five. And then build the platform from there and hopefully find a way to weave all of the front six, if you like, together.
And I did say in my match preview of that game that Bristol City don't draw football matches. They haven't drawn a football match for 20. And in the last 20 minutes, I said they don't draw football matches. Did you see a winner coming for one team? Yeah,
I did. I quoted that stat in my commentary. Actually, I had that one written down as well. That they don't draw. The more that time went on, it just was that kind of game where you didn't really feel like I didn't necessarily feel that even though Bournemouth had quite a lot of the possession and the territory in the second half, that they looked like they had enough of a cutting edge to make something happen. That the bounce of the ball wasn't quite going their way. The goalkeeper, obviously, apart from his massive ricket, had a good first half as well. So you felt like he would be, possibly equal to anything they had, but. Ultimately, scrap one in, get one in as best you can. Both goals were fortunate, really. But it's a crucial couple of minutes from the end, that goal, because other results, Barnsley, Cardiff, they're all picking up points. And Bournemouth were 8th before Cameron Carter-Vickers' backside intervened. And all of a sudden, they're back in the top 6 as a result of that. So it's getting pretty competitive in there.
And we'll take a look at the league table a little bit later at the end of the show. Let's put our eyes on to Preston then. And in the first game between the teams, they would give us our first loss at home. I think that would be their 5th away win and their 6th win of the season. What can you recall from that match?
Well, luckily, I've got my commentary notes from that game just here to help me recall it. But the one thing I do remember is Bournemouth had been in pretty good form going into that game. And all of a sudden, Preston were 3-0 up. And you're thinking, hang on a second, Barkay's in there just stealing in at the far post for that first goal unseen. It was a counter-attack from one end of the field to the other. And you have to look, I'm afraid, at the tracking there. And then this one from Scott Sinclair, which, again, you don't really expect people of Asmir Begovic's stature to be lobbed from, 40 yards or so. So, again, you're thinking, hang on a second, Preston, that was shortly after half-time, just as Bournemouth had gone in and probably tried to put a few things right. And then the third one, when it comes from Patrick Bauer very shortly, who hasn't played since this game. He got a long-term injury in this game. It really was a very long way back. And thankfully for the Cherries, they were able to find their way back as we see this goal from Patrick Bauer. Again, you're not really expecting a centre-half to be popping up at the back post, sliding in to make it 3-0. So Preston, we knew they were good away. We didn't think they were quite going to come and cause this kind of problem. Just as we wait to see Bournemouth's late comeback, which comes from a Junior Stanislas free kick. One thing I would note is that this Preston team that played this night, only one of that 11 started for them in midweek. They've had a real turnover of players. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a second as we see Stanislas's free kick there, bringing it back to 3-1. And you're thinking, okay, 3-1. Is there still a chance? That was on 70 minutes with 20 minutes to go. And one of his better free kicks this season, that one from Junior. We've seen a few end up in the stand and a few end up in the wall. But that one was one of his better ones. And then here's good old Sam Surridge popping up with a header just to give everybody a nervous last 5 minutes or so at 3-2. But it was ultimately a bridge too far. But yeah, Preston, a completely different team now to the one that won that night. Only Scott Sinclair, who started that game at Dean Court, and that was in December, started on Wednesday night or Tuesday night at Millwall.
And that'll be a key player to talk about in a minute when we look at the opposition. But a couple of players there that actually got brought up in the preview, in the press conference, I think, this morning. When you look at players like Sam Surridge, who have done well this season and maybe not got returned appearances off back of, coming off the pitch and making a difference. And players like Jayden Anthony, I mean, are you a bit shocked that they haven't had more interaction or more appearances this season?
I'll start with Sam. He's a very difficult one because when he comes on, he does show flashes of brilliance. But if you look at that Cardiff game, I think the Cardiff game was a bit of a wake-up call to Sam Surridge fans and those who clamour for Sam Surridge to play, because he didn't get beaten up literally, but he found it very, very difficult against Cardiff's three centre-halves playing, pretty much as a lone central striker in that game. So I think we can cross that off as one of Sam Surridge's strengths. He likes the physical battle, but that was a lone striker against three big centre-halves. That wasn't the game for him. He needed some support in that game. The thing about Sam is, he's been a good finisher. He's popped up in some good areas. His work rate is certainly not to be questioned, and that's what fans want to see, particularly when the team's going through a little bit of a dip. And some people are thinking, why is X working as hard as he could be? Is Y working as hard as he could be? Sam Surridge, you could always say he's given absolutely everything. But he still isn't quite the finished article. He's still young. We have to remember that. And when you've got Dom Solanke in the team, Solanke will always play ahead of Surridge. And the way that Bournemouth is set up, they only play one central striker. So that is one of the reasons that Sam has had as few opportunities as he had. I know he's frustrated not to have more opportunities, but all he can do when he comes on the pitch is score or make something happen or assist. And he's done that on a pretty regular basis. So I think, he's unhappy. Lots of Sam Surridge fans are unhappy. But I always say, I remember when Lewis Cook wasn't in the team and he suddenly became the best player in the world in fans' eyes. Whoever's not in the team, when the team aren't doing well, all of a sudden is 50 times the player that they actually are. So, I think Sam had a bit of a reality check in the Cardiff game, but there's no doubt he'll play a big role between now and the end of the season because Bournemouth are actually pretty short of strikers.
Do you know what? I'm content now already this season. I've just had live commentary from Kris Temple on Cherries Red Army YouTube channel, and some other people have come up and they've said that as well, that they're just Solent YouTube. Love it. Absolutely love it. Preston, then, at the weekend, in midweek, they lost at home to Millwall. I don't know if you see the goals, Chris, but a great goal from Ched Evans followed up by a Malone wonder strike top bins. But that was off the back of them beating Huddersfield. That's pretty much Preston all over. Win one, lose one. They can't seem to string any results together, really.
And that's why they're 14th. 3 wins in 13, and they've lost 8 of those. As you say, their away form has been better than their home form this season. They had got their home form together a little bit since Christmas, including that win over Huddersfield, as you say. But they've got a hugely changed squad. I was just looking before I came on air with you. They had 7 loans in January and 6 loans out, including Jayden Stockley, former Cherry. And, of course, Ben Davis went to Liverpool and Ben Pearson joined the Cherries. So they had 8 players left in January and 7 came in. So halfway through a season, and I'm not talking about fringe players necessarily, they brought in 7 guys who I think nearly all played in midweek. So they brought in first-team players. So that's half the team has changed in the space of a month. So there's no doubt that you can see why they've been a bit inconsistent. Scott Sinclair is the sort of constant in there, if you like. But they've got some good players on the day, as we've seen, but Barkhazen hasn't been getting in the team the last few games. Ched Evans has obviously come in, had a fallout with Joey Barton at Fleetwood, and he's come in. He's a useful sort of signing to pick up in January, isn't he? If he's, I know he's got a checkered history, but with the ability he's got on the football pitch. So I think it's almost very difficult to compare Preston that played Bournemouth in December and the Preston that they'll face tomorrow, given also the contrast between the home and the away form.
Fantastic stuff. And what we'll do is we'll look at Preston in more detail, continue with the chat as it's going, really enjoy it. And we'll look at Preston in more detail just after this. Okay, so we would normally have an opposition guest at this stage, a few connection issues. So me and Chris are going to try and delve into Preston in more detail. And Chris has already started. But as you said, Chris, 14th in the league, 43 points, 13 wins, 8 away from home. They've only taken 1 point off the top 6 at home, though. Does that lead towards a style of play that they play differently away from home than they do at home?
Well, it's a good point you make. And just to sort of put some flesh on the bones of that, their results against the top 6 at home, they lost 1-0 at home to Swansea, 1-0 at home to Watford, and drew 0-0 with Reading, which is the point that you're referring to. So there's been 2 goals in total in the 3 games against the top 6 at home Preston this season. So I think that gives you a little bit of an idea that they're not maybe going to be that adventurous. We've thought that before about teams, and they surprise you. But when you look at their team, and they've brought in Anthony Gordon on loan from Everton. He was one of those that came in January. Brad Potts has been getting a bit of a run in the team and is one of their sort of attacking players now as well. They play a 4-2-3-1 system as well. So Bournemouth will be matched up, without the ball at least, with Malumbi and Whiteman as their two sitters now. They've changed the back four almost completely over the course of the last few weeks. They might have one or two back tomorrow. Alan Brown, the captain, who's a key player for them. I remember he deputised at right back, I think, as an emergency in the game in December, which is always good when you got one of their better players out of position. So he's touch and go, I think, to come back tomorrow. They won't give him much away on their website, but one or two others who may well be back. Ryan Ledson is another one of their key players who hasn't been playing recently due to injury. So, difficult for them. They're pretty much as far away from the playoffs as they are from the drop. So they are classic mid-table fodder. But sometimes those teams with nothing effectively to play for can be the most dangerous.
Feel like I have a statistical competition here. I'm known for a stat, and I've got one for you here, Kris. Preston North End are the second worst team they've conceded the most penalties, second most penalties in 7, 5 at home. Certain Junior Stanislas likes a penalty. That's a good stat if we can get some attacking players in the penalty box.
Yeah, penalties have been contrasting again for the Cherries at both ends. Stanislas hasn't missed one, not just this season, but in his Bournemouth career, in his whole career, actually. And Asmir Begovic hasn't saved one yet this season. I think he's faced 4 now. The only reason I like stats, by the way, is I've started writing. I've got a bit of work to do, as you can see, still for tomorrow's game. But these off-tube games, when we're commentating on a TV, if we haven't got the weather or the shirt numbers or something to carry on about, I have to find a few stats to fill the gaps. So I have had to put a few in my head. But yeah, your penalty stat's a good one. And if Bournemouth can get some of their key players, Danjuma or Stanislas, I don't remember Danjuma. Has Danjuma won any of the penalties this season? I know he was out for a bit, but yeah, get them in the box and hopefully some dodgy tackles come in.
And when we look at the players, like you said, we've talked a bit about Ched Evans, and someone they're probably going to heavily rely on is Scott Sinclair. I think he's got 9 goals, and he is probably the danger man.
Yeah, 9 goals. He's 3 clear of Barkhuizen, who's the second top scorer with 6. And yeah, I mean, he could probably still do better than be playing mid-table in the Championship. He could probably be troubling a top 8, top 10 Championship team maybe on a regular basis. But I think he's Northwest based, isn't he? So he's probably pretty happy to be at Preston. They are a club who are probably a flirt with the playoffs, and it's a shame we haven't got Jack with us at the moment to give me a more accurate view on this, but they're probably a club who flirting with the playoffs is probably the best they can really hope for, I think, with the budgets they've got and things, and having sold obviously Ben Davis to Liverpool and Ben Pearson to the Cherries. And it will be a big day, I'm sure, for Ben Pearson going back there tomorrow pretty quickly after his move, and probably nice for him to have got a few games under his belt already to hopefully hit the ground running if he plays.
So Jonathan Woodgate took his usual press conference today, and before we look at what was discussed in that press conference, player availability, there's a reason to say that Jonathan Woodgate comes across very well in the press conferences, and can that make a difference to a team or what you potentially achieve as a team?
Certainly, in terms of getting messages across to the players, I don't think they'll be left in any uncertain terms as to what he wants. And I think fans have commented quite a lot, replying to our BBC Radio Solent interviews and things about how sort of to the point Jonathan Woodgate is, and it's refreshing to the point that I think it caught us all out to start with, because we've been used to Eddie Howe and more so Jason Tindall having very long answers, and Jason would admit sometimes too long. 2 minutes to answer one question and saying the same thing 3 or 4 times is probably too long. Jonathan Woodgate, if it's only a 10 seconds worth of thoughts he'll just give you 10 seconds. So a couple of times I was sort of scratching around for my next question as he came to the end of a short answer. And I know a couple of other of the local reporters have found that as well. But to be honest with you, if we end up with a 2-minute interview and you ask him 10 questions and he gives you 10 answers that you're looking for, then the interview's 2 minutes. It's better than having 6 minutes of ramble. So yeah, I like his style. It takes getting used to, but now that we're used to it, we're ready for it. And we're, actually have a few more questions up our sleeve if we need it sometimes. And I think getting his message across to the players seems to be working so far in terms of what he wants on the training grounds. And I can't imagine Joe Jordan mixes his words on the training ground either.
I think after the Cardiff game, Jonathan Woodgate said he needed to stick with a formation and a squad that was going to take him from here on in to get in the playoffs and try and get to the Premier League. Player availability, players missing potentially, or Sam Surridge's got a foot injury, David Brooks. What else did we sort of see from that press conference?
Not a lot else, really. I think that I get the impression that he wants to stay, as I mentioned earlier on, with the back five that he's got. Ben Pearson there on the screen is obviously the one who he did mention isn't probably 100% fit yet. And that's because he had a long while out. He had a bit of an injury before he came to Bournemouth. Then he didn't play for Preston because of his contract situation. So he didn't play for a month. And then he's sort of eased his way back in. He got left out for a couple of games and he's come back in the last couple and played excellently. And he does do the unseen work, doesn't he? Sometimes you'll see him on the end of a move breaking out, but other times he's tracking runs. He's doing the things that don't often get the headlines. So I think Bournemouth fans are liking what they've seen of Ben Pearson so far. And his propensity for a booking, and I'm sure his teammates, a bit like everybody trying to wind Jefferson Lerma up, I'm pretty sure Preston will know exactly how to push Ben Pearson's buttons if he does play tomorrow. So, yeah, in terms of options, I just think the 3 games in a week on maybe Bristol City's pitch wasn't the best. It wasn't too bad, actually. Preston's, I'm not sure, I haven't seen it but recently, but I don't know what that will be like. But that's quite a big ask in the Championship to play the same 11 players for 3 games in 7 days. The Watford game was a tough game as well for them. So I'm certainly not, I wouldn't think it'll be the same team again. I would think it'll be the same back 5. I really do think he's trying to ink that in as a defensive unit. It's just up top, or that front 6 and what options he has really, because without David Brooks, he has to play Stanislas or Danjuma on the right, which is not really the side he wants to play. He wants them cutting in. You know, we think of David Brooks and Matt Ritchie, who's obviously been in the headlines this week as well, cutting onto their left foot, and Junior Stanislas is sort of out of position effectively. So they don't have another left-footed option at the moment. And up top, Dom Solanke's definitely made a difference the last couple of games. Sam works hard, but we've already mentioned, he doesn't bring the same as Dom Solanke does. And Shane Long, he scored 2 goals, but he'll work hard, but he's not Dom Solanke. So, yeah, there's a balancing act, definitely. The positive is there's a clear week after this game. So you could risk playing somebody and then they've got a bit of a rest.
We'll have a look at the predicted 11 and we'll get your thoughts in the chat and who you think will start. Is it a coincidence that we look a little bit more aggressive and we look a bit stronger in matches since Joe Jordan's come in?
I don't know if it's Joe Jordan's impact. I think it's a Jonathan Woodgate impact, really. I think you've heard him in his press conferences and his interviews say, we need to fight, we need to battle, we need to do the ugly stuff well. Sometimes it isn't very Bournemouth because Bournemouth play pretty stuff and score nice goals. You think of the last couple of goals they've scored. The Watford goal obviously was sort of a Route 1 ball that was finished first time, and the 2 goals at Bristol City we've already spoken about. So the last 3 goals haven't been very Bournemouth really, but he won both games. So from that point of view, he's getting that extra bit of edge in there. I think Jefferson Lerma, I said this on the radio the other night. I have mixed opinions about Jefferson Lerma's antics against Watford. Fans love it, and I see why fans love it, and I would love it if he was playing for my team. I think some of his sort of reactions and play acting, there was some acting in there, borderline going too far, if you ask me, because there will be a time when he does get pulled back or clouted, and the refs think he's crying wolf and doesn't get it. So he just needs to be a little bit careful with that. And that, players make the most of stuff all the time. That happens in every single game up and down the country. So just don't become a marked man. It happened to Ryan Fraser a little bit, didn't he, when he started going down a little bit easy. And he didn't get a decision after that hardly. No. So, yeah, I think Jefferson needs to be a little bit careful with that. But I do like the extra bit of fight that's been in the team.
Make sure you hit that like button. We're going into the final section of this show. We're going to try and put our inner Woodgate now in and try and see what team he's going to pick. We're going to do this. So you've spoken a bit about there, Kris, about that back 5, and any manager will probably tell you if you want to have success with a football team, you need a good spine. And when we've got Asmir Begovic, who's had an absolute fantastic season, Steve Cook's been an absolute leader, and Carter Vickers really stepping up, we've really got a good starting spine there.
Before I talk about that, can I the fact we're deciding what pants the players are going to wear is caught my eye first of all there. Sorry if anybody's mentioned that in a previous show. I presume that's because it's some kind of American graphic.
That's anyway.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. The spine is the key. And I think Steve Cook and Carter Vickers are undisputedly the number 1 partnership now. Carter Vickers, I tweeted it in the week in my reflections as well, has to become a permanent signing as soon as possible. And I noticed our colleagues at the Daily Echo who grabbed him after the game the other night in person while we were stuck in the studio. We were able to have a bit of a longer chat with him, and he said he's open to staying at the end of the season, which will be encouraging to hear. And I wouldn't imagine it will cost too much for Bournemouth to get him either. I think he's got 1 year left at Spurs, and he obviously hasn't featured there either, so they're probably just looking to get something for him. So I would like to see him come in permanently. I think he complements Steve Cook very well. And yeah, you've got Begovic obviously in there, and Lerma. Lerma's an interesting one because actually I would say Lerma had a bit of a dip up until about 4 or 5 games ago. I would say Lerma was not sure of his place in the team. I think he got left out one game, didn't he? I don't think we'd seen the Jefferson Lerma that we would come to expect for whatever reason, whether he was just being dragged down by the results. But there's no doubt that in the last 2 or 3 games he's been back.
Lloyd Kelly's been much improved and been very good the last few games. And the right back, I think Smith's been himself lately. He's been impressive as well. With Jack Stacey breathing down his neck, does Adam Smith keep his place tomorrow?
For me, he does. Yeah. I think Jack Stacey's only just back. So yeah, Jack does give you that attacking edge going forward. And some will say, with Bournemouth just struggling a little bit for that attacking fluidity, the need for the fullbacks to get involved. With that little bit of extra protection from a couple of the City midfielders, it does allow you to try and get the fullbacks forward a little bit into those big gaps you've got there on your graphic. So I think Jack Stacey is the better option going forward, but I think Adam Smith is the better option defensively. Although Adam Smith, he gets forward as well pretty well, but I think Smith's a stronger defender than Stacey. So I would certainly not be changing the back five the way they've played in the last couple of games. And I think Adam Smith's another one who, again, probably could be, like a lot of them, to be honest, could be accused of having had a bit of a dip earlier in the season, but he's definitely back as well.
Assuming he's fit, I'm sure Ben Pearson's going to want to line up against his old team. Does he play alongside Lerma?
Yeah, I mean, the central three would be the one area where I think they might look. There's a slight question mark possibly about Phil Billings' fitness. I haven't heard anything definitively on that, but if Billing is fit, then I just wonder whether he might play in that 8 role, because we've seen him play pretty well in a couple of games, as the sort of free roaming attacking midfielder, if you like. It was a role that we haven't seen him in that much, but in this formation, he does seem to sort of suit that role. So I think if Pearson is up to playing 3 games in a week, then it'll be him and Lerma. And I wondered whether, if Billing is fit, whether he would come in for Lewis Cook, who is still getting used to that role in that 8 position. So the 8 would be a 50-50 for me. I think it all depends on Billing's fitness. And
another player that's now out of suspension is Jack Wilshere. And you think on paper, you've got to play Jack Wilshere.
Yes, I have to say, I've completely forgotten about Jack Wilshere after his suspension in midweek. But I think Jack Wilshere is slightly struggling in this formation a little bit because he hasn't got the legs to be in that 8 position at the moment. We've seen Lewis Cook and Phil Billing all over the pitch, trying to link up with Dom Solanke and trying to fill a lot of that midfield area. And I don't think Jack Wilshere's got the legs to do that. So if you're going to play 2 sitters and the number 8 like that, rather than a flat 4, then Jack Wilshere, I think, is finding it difficult at the moment to get into that team. Maybe, they brought him on for a bit of control for the last 15 minutes just to try and get the ball and keep it if that's the situation of the game. So, yeah, I mean, you've typed Billing in there. I would say if Billing's fit, just because of physical rotation and 3 games in a week, not necessarily because he's been playing better than Lewis Cook, I would say they've been about the same. But Billing has been doing okay recently. So I think, yeah, if he's fit, I don't disagree with you typing him in there.
A lot of love for Billing in the chat as well, so we'll go for Billing there. So the front 3 probably picks itself at the moment, and it looks like it'll be potentially Stanislas and Danjuma. And I'll put them in on the pitch in a moment, Kris. Danjuma, a player that can be very frustrating for about 85 minutes, but just come alive. I mean, we've had people say, I'd hate to play with him, but he just has that moment of magic.
Sometimes those flair players do, don't they? Sometimes those flair players, you won't even see them. They might as well not be out there for a lot of the time. And, Arnie Danjuma, he has his moments of frustration. There's no doubt at all. I think in the one of the chances at Watford last week, I said he needs to get his head up, because that's one of the biggest problems sometimes, is that he's so focused on doing it all himself that he doesn't see the better options around him. And that's why I think you hint that you'd find it difficult to play with him. I would as well, to be honest. I'd be wanting the ball, and he doesn't often release the ball once the headlines. But when he cuts in on his right foot and it goes well, and he finds the back of the net, you can't really complain. So I think Danjuma's been just getting used to the role that they've been asking for him as well, because there's been a bit of tracking back to do in this formation. Again, sometimes the fullbacks getting forward from the opposition means that he's got to do a bit of tracking back. So yeah, I think he's been okay the last couple of games, but he is one of those players who can do nothing for 80 minutes, but he can win you the game. So you're right to put them both in. I don't think there's any other options at the moment, and that is the only concern. If you started to get injuries to Danjuma, we know he's a little bit fragile. Junior, obviously, touch wood, he's had a great run fitness-wise this season, which is why he's managed to become top scorer. Both of those have had injury history. If you had an injury to either of those two, looking at the bench from the other day, Roro Vikelme is, I'm not sure how badly he's training, but he can't get on the field. And, he's been a bit lightweight when he's come on, but he literally has hardly got off the bench, has he, in recent weeks? So he would be, looking at the subs from the other night, he would be your next best. Jaden Anthony, who you mentioned earlier on, again, has looked lively on a couple of occasions, but still very, very raw. And he'll be benefiting from training with these guys week in, week out. So, yeah, if you got an injury, Riquelme or Anthony would have to come in with Brooks still out for another 3 or 4 weeks. That weakens those positions significantly.
And up that top position, striking position, Dom Solanke and Shane Long probably vying for that spot. Shane Long has come to Bournemouth to play football matches. Dom Solanke, 10 goals, and we look a lot better with him in the team. Who'd you go with that number 9 position?
If he's fit and able, it's got to be Dom Solanke. Shane Long, you're right. He was sat on the bench at Southampton and probably playing a little bit more for Southampton than he has been for Bournemouth, actually. And he's another one, a bit like Jack Wilshere, two experienced signings made in January who are victims a little bit of the formation, because Solanke will be picked over Shane Long every week if he's fit. Top scorer, huge part of the team generally. So I think Shane Long, the time they play one up, he's struggling. Because he will be second pick. And with Sam Surridge back, maybe hopefully sooner from his toe injury, then they've got 3 strikers, but only 1 spot. So it would be a no-brainer for me that Solanke would play if 100% fit and able to go again.
Is there an argument to say that generally not always the case, because Leeds got promoted without a 20-plus goal scorer, but Dom Solanke has scored 10 and looked a lot better this season and more comfortable, but not replacing Callum Wilson, who gave us 20-plus goals in the Championship before we went to the Premier League, and Lewis Grabban the year before that? Is it a case to say that we might be in a better position if we had sort of replaced Callum Wilson and got more goals on the board?
Yeah, 20-goal striker's not easy to come by, though, either. That's the only issue. No one's guaranteed to score 20, and you'd say bringing somebody in who might have had a 20-plus season before. There aren't many Ivan Tonys knocking about in the world of availability anyway, and teams that want to let them go to potentially a promotion rival as well. So the fact that Dom Solanke cost a bit of money, I think his path to the team was obviously blocked by Callum Wilson and by Joshua King to a certain extent. So I think they almost had to put a bit of faith in him and say, right, you're worth whatever it was, 15, 16 million pounds, even more. You haven't had many chances. We're going down level. Here's your chance. You show us that you're better than this level by banging the goals in. And the thing about Dom Solanke is he, a bit like Callum Wilson, brings a lot to the team apart from goals. Callum Wilson was helped out by quite a few penalties, I think, in his total as well. But when you look at that front 3 you've got on the team sheet there, there's 28 goals between those 3 this season. Solanke's got 10, Stanislas 11, and Danjuma 7. So considering that Danjuma's been out of the team for a little period, Dom's had a few games out of the team, and Junior's been a little spell out as well. And David Brooks hasn't been firing, and you probably could have expected 6 or 7 goals from David Brooks this season. And what's he got? 3, I think, even if that. So I think it's not a bad return for those 3 players, given that Bournemouth have chopped and changed their formation. I think, none of those, I would say, are probably a 20-goal a season man. Solanke, if he gets 15, I'd say he's had a good season, bearing in mind it was pretty tough for him to score last season.
So this is our predicted 11 who we think Jonathan Woodgate will pick for tomorrow's game. Let us know what you think. If you're not able to watch this live, just drop your comments below and we'll check them out. Now, the connection issues seem to have come back, and we do have our Preston fan in. So we'll just pull him in for the last part of the show just to get his thoughts. Please welcome Preston fan Jack Goodwin. How you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. We covered the Preston section in just a while ago, but just get your thoughts on how your season's going. An inconsistent season, and obviously a loss midweek.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, really, Kirk. It has been a really inconsistent season for us, which you would expect with the amount of money we have and the size of the club. But we win one week. We were fantastic against Huddersfield on the weekend, and then we were awful against Millwall during midweek. So we can have brilliant performances. Probably our best performance was against Bournemouth earlier in the season, in which we went to your place and won 3-2. And then we can go get beaten by 4-0 by Cardiff 2 weeks ago. So it's just been a strange old season, really. You don't know where you're at, because one second you're right down in the pits, and then the next you're delighted with the game because you've just beaten Huddersfield 3-0. So mid-table, it's not the worst position to be in when you can't go to games.
And trying to take anything you can to try and get a result tomorrow. Does stuff like Alex Neil's good managerial record against Bournemouth help you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm not really a big believer in managers having a good impact against maybe clubs in a sense, but I think having the impact against certain managers can do well. And we faced Jonathan Woodgate. I certainly remember playing Jonathan Woodgate last year. Middlesbrough schooled us at Deepdale 2-0. They played really well. That was where they start. I think they just had started their really good run around that time. It was just after Christmas, and they beat us 2-0 at Deepdale. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. I think the way Bournemouth play and the way you'll set up, you'll expect to come and dominate the game. I imagine, and you expect to come and win. I think that suits North End in the sense that we can press you high and try and force you into making mistakes. And
the obvious, do we need to keep Scott Sinclair and Ched Evans quiet?
Yeah, I think so. They seem to be the only two players that can hit the barn door at the moment. So they are the two players that you probably will need to keep quiet. And if you've got Ben Pearce on the pitch, I'm sure he'll be up to all his old tricks.
Yeah, we have put him in the predicted 11, so we hope he starts. Right, this is your opportunity in the chat to put your score predictions in the chat, and we'll show them in a bit. So put your score predictions in, and what we'll do, guys, is we'll just quickly have a look at the fixtures for tomorrow as well to see how that changes. Because as you said, Kris, one result either way. Barnsley are knocking on the door. You can see that they've got Birmingham at home. You've got other teams like Cardiff City that are unbeaten under Mick McCarthy. But one result, one way, you're out the playoffs. You're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Cardiff are playing at the moment. Actually, they're 0-0 at Huddersfield after 25 minutes. I just got that score up in front of me. But yeah, the chase for the playoff positions is really hotting up. I mean, even Millwall in 10th. I mean, they're 9 points off it. They beat obviously Preston. Sorry to rub that in, Jack, in midweek. I did actually sit and watch some of that game on the Sky Sports red button, the single camera coverage, and I was making a cup of tea when Ched Evans pinged one in the top corner. So I didn't even get a replay. I didn't even get to see it because there's no replays. No. But yeah, to come back to your point, Kirk, I mean, that was the key thing. And when you look at Bournemouth's next few fixtures, Barnsley at home next weekend, followed by Swansea at home, then the cup game, and then Middlesbrough at home, who are on the precipice of the playoffs as well. So the next three home games after this one are three massive ones in terms of taking points off rivals. There you can see the table. I mean, yeah, so Barnsley at home in 8th, Middlesbrough at home in 9th, and between that, Swansea at home in 4th. So a lot can change, but Cardiff have got momentum. Barnsley have got momentum. Bournemouth, 2 wins, got a bit of momentum. Got to keep it going tomorrow.
Like you said, Jack, with Preston in 14th, I suppose you were looking for a little bit more at the start of the season?
I guess when you have such good season last year, I know we finished 9th in the end, but we spent the majority of the season in top 6. I guess you could say we expected more, but I think with the amount of money we spent, I mean, we haven't broken our transfer record since 2004. So it says about maybe there's not a lack of ambition, but maybe a different transfer strategy compared to other teams in the league. And when we're playing teams like yourself and Watford and Norwich and all these teams that are coming down from the Premier League with big name players, and they've got so much parachute payments, it makes it difficult for us who've never been in the Premier League and other teams. But I mean, teams like Barnsley at the moment, they're overachieving massively. So I don't think it's a case of North End, because obviously we're not overachieving, but I don't think we're underachieving. So I guess we've just got to accept where we are.
Let's look at some of the scores that you're putting in the chat then to see what you think will happen tomorrow. So we've got, how you doing, Aaron? A 3-1 win to the Cherries. This will be very heavy Cherries, obviously. We're looking for Mark's going for a 2-1. How you doing, Chris? We've got a 2-1, a 2-0, 2-1 Cherries, 2-0. AFC Bournemouth, Germany. How you doing? 3-2. We got a 3-1 for Rich Neil there. Steve has gone for a 2-0. Daniel in the USA got his call from Jefferson Lerma yesterday. That was a nice little treat. Well done, Jeff. 2-1. Hope you're having a great day, Daniel. We've got a 1-0 in there as well. What are you expecting from the game tomorrow, Jack? You just hoping to get a draw?
I'm quietly confident. I'm not usually. I don't usually predict North End to win, but I'm quietly confident just because of how well we played against you at your place, and we have a good record against the top teams this year. We went to Brentford and won 4-2, went to Reading and won 3-0, and you can say they weren't at home, but is it really a home and away advantage at the moment with no fans in the stadium? So I just think it's down to the way we perform better when the other team has the ball. And I imagine with your midfield and the quality of players that you have, I imagine you will have the ball. You'll have 60% of the ball. And I think that bodes well for North End in the case that we can, like I said, press high and get in your faces and make life difficult for you. So I am actually quietly confident for a North End victory, to be honest.
Appreciate you coming on, Jack. Just let us know what you do again. You've been on Back of the Net a few times, few bits that you do for Preston. And did you have a certain interview on a podcast with Simon Francis?
Yeah, so a few of the guys that I know run this podcast called the Team Guys Podcast, and they did an interview with Simon Francis. So I went on with them and helped them out for that podcast. So yeah, it was really enjoyable, and he spoke very, very highly of Bournemouth.
Cheers coming on, Jack. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
Thank you.
Speak soon.
Cheers.
How's your day going to play out tomorrow then, Chris? How's your normal setup when you wake up in the morning, game day, and what's your score prediction?
Well, to be honest, it completely changes by not being allowed to go to away games. Obviously, I would be in Preston now if the normal rules were in play and we were able to go. We travel up to the games that are right up north. We travel up the day before. But, you know, as we commentate from a cupboard, I live about 5 minutes from the BBC HQ where we commentate in the cupboard from. Because of BBC rules, you're supposed to go in quite late because they don't want people hanging around the building unnecessarily. I mean, I would get sacked if I said what I really think of the situation, so I won't. I noticed there was some national media coverage of the situation this week as well. Anyway, so I will actually probably go into the BBC about 1 o'clock tomorrow, on air for 2 with Willow. We've got all 3 of our teams, Saints and Pompey, are playing at 3 o'clock as well tomorrow. So we shouldn't be too busy with me and Willow pre-match. But yeah, I've because of that, I actually left a little bit of my prep for tomorrow's game to tomorrow morning, which I do like to do. Midweek games, I try and do quite a lot of prep on the day because I just feel like it gets my head going that day and everything's in my head there when I go to the ground. Obviously, it depends where you're traveling to. So for home games, you know, I do finish off my prep on a Saturday morning. So I certainly will do. I've been a bit busy today with Jonathan's press conference and Jamie Redknapp's podcast and other things I've been doing. So it has had to wait till tomorrow. So that will be my day tomorrow. And then my score prediction, I think it was Mr. Tiggs I just saw pop up there, one of the Back of the Net team. There it is, 0-2. I think I'm with Mr. Tiggs. I think 0-2. I think 2 better goals than they scored at Bristol City, which wouldn't be hard.
I'm going to snap that as well at 2-0, and I'm going to mention something I probably mentioned in the last 3 previews, is that we haven't scored a goal in the first 20 minutes since December the 12th. And I think if we do that, we'll hit the ground running and we'll have this game put to bed, hopefully in the second half, comfortably managing the team. We really appreciate everyone coming on to the show. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Keep up all the good work. Keep up all the good work that you are doing. Until tomorrow, Lineups Live is 45 minutes from kickoff. And is the radio as well, Chris? Yeah,
we'll be on air from 2. I'm not sure how it works with the AFCB TV stream tomorrow. I mean, don't start shouting. And just to say, it's quite a good opportunity to say, if it's not the right commentary and it's not us, it is nothing to do with Radio Solent. Nothing whatsoever to do with us. It's all to do with the stream. We don't have any control. So I'm sorry if you do want to hear us, you don't get us. Not our fault.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Your weekend started right here. Let's go for it tomorrow. Let's get another 3 points on the board towards the playoffs, towards the Premier League. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Up the Cherries.